Hello, this is Mr. Muhammad Abdul Manam. Today we're going to talk about how to write a story. Okay, so we have some elements and features uh, of how to write a story. So, what are the features, or what do I mean by features? These are the essential, important elements that must be written or must be found in a story. So, first of all, we need to define the purpose of writing a story. So, what's the purpose of writing a story? It's definitely to entertain. As you know, we have three types of purposes for writing. We combine them into a PI, the abbreviation of PI. The P is for uh, persuade. This is mainly like news articles. This is nonfiction. The I is for informative, to inform, like reports, and the E is for entertain, such as stories. So let's get back to our topic. So a story includes characters. That's the first element. So what's the characters? The people, the persons inside the story. It also must include a setting. So what's the setting? It's the when and where. It's the time and place of the events of the story. Next, we have a plot. It's the actual events, the problems, or the ideas, the things that happen, the events that happen in the story. And all of this should be sequenced. We should have a logical sequence of events. Also, we need a conflict and a resolution. A conflict is the problem between evil versus good, for example, and a resolution, which is the story ending or the process of resolving the problem. Aside from all of that, we need descriptive details, we need powerful vocab, we need adjectives, adverbs, we need figurative language as well. So, this is what we call the story mountain. So, the first thing is the plot. What's the plot? It refers to the events that takes place in the story. Most events in a non-fictional in a fictional story follow the story mountain. That's the story mountain, and we will get to know what's a story mountain in detail in a few seconds. Next, we have the setting. For example, if we're talking about, or if we decided to write a story about Cinderella, let's take Cinderella for example. So the story setting took place in a mansion or in a castle. Other stories could take place in outer space, such as Star Wars. Next, we need the characters. These are the people in the story. For example, we had the Cinderella, Prince Charming, the evil stepmother, etc. Then we have the conflict. Okay, that's the problem between two of the characters, the problem between Cinderella and her evil stepmother when she didn't want Cinderella to go uh, to the ball or the the event or whatever that the Prince Charming was organizing, the party. Uh, Last, we need a theme. Okay, it's the overarching. It's the message that the author or the writer of the story wants you, the reader, to remember. Okay, it's usually a big idea. For example, in Cinderella, it's tolerance. Okay, when Cinderella decided to tolerate and she decided to pardon her evil stepmother at the end of the story. Okay, so let's take a look at the story map. So this is how we start writing the story. We should start by writing a map. This is a map or plot diagram for writing stories. In the middle, we have the title. You need a title. Cinderella or happily married. You can choose a title like that, or maybe uh, whatever. Next, we have a setting, which is we decided that the setting is in ancient times. That's the when, and the where. It's in a magical castle or mm, in a huge mansion. The characters, we have the main character, which is Cinderella. We have also the evil stepmother. We have the servants in the castle. We have the two-step sisters, etc., and Prince Charming. We have the plot, the events where Cinderella meets the Prince Charming and they start dancing, etc. We have the conflict, the problem between Cinderella and her evil stepmother, and we have the resolution, which is it's the step or phase when the story comes to an end. So let's take a look at the story mountain in detail. So we begin with an exposition. What's an exposition? This is introduction. It's the story beginning. Okay, so it is the introduction of the story where the setting, place and time, the background, and the characters are introduced. Then we have the story begins to introduce the conflict, the problem between, or the struggle between the story characters. Sometimes the characters try several things to solve the problem. The conflict makes the story interesting. So, as we move further down, or as we read more and more of the story, we have the rising action. So, the story problem, it develops or it actually gets more complicated toward the middle of the story until we reach the climax. The climax or the turning point, this is where the highest excitement, this is the highest exciting moment in the story. So the struggle of the characters is over. The climax happens near the end of the story. After that, we have the falling action. Okay, so during the falling action, the story comes to an end, and events lead to ending. The characters start resolving their problems. Okay, for example, this and the Cinderella story example, this happens when the climax will be the marriage of Prince Charming and Cinderella. The falling action will be the fact that Cinderella decided to tolerate and pardon her evil stepmother instead of maybe sentencing her to death. The resolution is the end where the conflicts are solved or the problems are solved eventually. Sometimes a moral lesson is given or learned. So, one more thing to include when you're writing the exposition, which is the introduction. Here we decided that this is the exposition. One more thing is called the hook. So, what's the hook? The hook is actually what grabs the reader's attention. It what makes the or forces the reader to continue reading the story till the end. So, how many types do we have of hooks? How many types of hooks do we have? We have several types of hooks. Hooks can be questions. Okay, we can start by a question. We can start by a dialogue. We can start by stating a strong emotion or sound words, using sound words such as crack, boom. Maybe you're talking about an explosion or something, or or maybe you can start your hook by writing descriptions of the setting. For example, that's an example of writing hooks as questions. You can say, what would our school be like if we didn't have a principal or rules? You can use a flashback, or we call it a memory. I've only been fishing once, but it was one of the best times of my life. So the speaker here or the character is talking about her first time or his first time to go fishing. So it's talking about a memory. We can use figurative language. I was so hungry I could eat a cow. That's a metaphor. Or I tiptoed as quiet as a mouse. That's a simile. We can use description of the setting. For example, powerful waves crashed along the shore as the sunset showed its orange face. This also using uses figurative language because we have here a personification of the sunset. We're personifying the sunset as if it's a man or if it's a person with a face. Okay. As for the setting, we need to describe the time. Okay, and determine the place and also talk about the environment or describe or draw a picture of the environment where the events of the story take place. Okay, let's move on to the types of conflict. We have four types of conflict or problems. We have a character versus self. Like maybe if you have the main character facing a dilemma or a very harsh, strong, or a very difficult internal decision or battle. Or we can have a character versus character conflict, such as the example of Cinderella, where Cinderella had a problem with her evil stepmother. Or we can have a character versus environment, like maybe people escaping a volcano or uh, an earthquake or something, or a tornado. Or we can have a character versus society conflict, where the main character faces a conflict with a group or a community or culture. Okay, in order to improve your writing, you need to use flashbacks and foreshadowing techniques in your plot. So we use flashbacks and foreshadowing to give the reader more information and details that are relevant to the story timeline. So what's meant by flashback? So flash means sudden, and back means relating to the past. So it's talking. Flashbacks. The flashback is a technique where we use memories to transport the reader back in time to share more information about an important event. A flashback can help the reader to fill in holes in the plot. Otherwise, on the other hand, we use foreshadowing. So what's for means in the front, in the beginning, and shadow means to cast a shadow over means to predict. So foreshadowing, it's a technique used by authors to hint or mention something that will happen later in the book. So foreshadowing helps the reader predict what will happen next. That's it for today's lesson. Thank you for watching the video. Bye bye. Have a nice day.